My name is Dr. Tisha Evans, and with me is my wonderful co-host,
Carson Raquel.
And this is Be Well, a show created by Your Therapy Now. For more information on the services that we have, visit yourtherapynow.com. All right, Carson, so what are we talking about for today?
We are talking about when people violate boundaries.
AKA intruders, right? So our last show, we really talked about how do you be a gatekeeper and focus on protecting yourself, so setting boundaries. And so this show, we're really going to focus on how do you not violate other people's boundaries and be respectful of the limits that other people have set. And the reason why this is important is because you want to have healthy relationships. And part of having a healthy relationship is about communication and also boundaries, okay? So I'm going to share the top two boundaries that I have seen and heard where people really have a hard time abiding by. And so I'll share those as well as some things that people can do to not engage in violating other people's boundaries. So the first one is taking as much as you can get from somebody else, right? Just because someone is generous or they may say yes doesn't mean that you need to ask, or it doesn't mean that you need to take what they are giving, okay? And I think that's important because when you take advantage of other people, it can really break down trust. And also too, it can make the other person get bitter or not feel like they're valued in the relationship. So it's really important to respect other relationships and the people in those relationships by not taking advantage of them. The second one is expecting others to fill your need without asking for them, okay? And so what that means is you are really assuming that people are mind readers, right? Even though I have a need and I may not have communicated to you, I'm expecting you to fulfill it. And then get upset when you don't. Right? So that is not a healthy way to engage in any type of relationship. So that's an unhealthy boundary. I said I was going to do two, but I'm going to sneak in a third one. The third one is falling apart so someone can take care of you. Okay, so really playing the victim role, right? So, you know, if you can't get what you need or get what you want, or you're not getting the attention that you want, you fall into woe is me or woe, I'm the victim, just so somebody can pick up the pieces or just so someone can take care of you. Those are really unhealthy ways to engage in any type of relationship. Now, some ways to not do that. Got 3 tips for you. First is don't take advantage of someone's generosity. So important. Just because someone is generous doesn't mean that you need to take advantage of them. Also, 2, you're not a mind reader. Your family members are not mind readers. Your colleagues, your friends are not mind readers. So you can't assume that people know what you need and then get upset because they don't do what's in your mind. So really understand that people are not mind readers. And if you want something, you need to ask for it, knowing that the person has every right to say yes or to say no. Last is being assertive and asking for your needs and not defaulting into the victim role. That is so huge, right? So making sure that even though someone else may not be able to get you what you need, you can do your part and taking steps to make sure that the things that you need in your life or desire in your life, making efforts to make those happen. So definitely some key things to keep in mind when we're talking about not being intruders and intruding on other people's boundaries.
So a big thing that comes to my mind as a question is for the person who is generous and the person who is a taker, whose responsibility is it to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of or they're not taking advantage?
Both. Right? You're responsible, like say for instance, if you're the generous person, you're responsible in being mindful of, okay, I can be generous, but if I'm being so generous to a point where it violates my boundary, then you have to take responsibility of that. But sometimes it may not always be that, right? Where you're mindful of that, but it's still your responsibility. right? You want to have a limit of this is how much or how willing I am to be generous. And if I'm the taker in the relationship, I have to ask myself, okay, am I taking a lot from this person, right? Self-assessment is huge. Asking yourself these questions. Am I always saying yes, 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 give me this, or I'm always asking? And if the answer is yes, that might mean I need to set a new boundary and say, you know what, even though this person may say yes, I'm not going to always accept. Maybe I'll just accept 50% of the time rather than 100% of the time.
I'm going to keep picking at that question. So Dr. Evans, how do you do that when it's a close family member?
Yes, our lovely family members, right? Well, I think it's really about ahead of time setting your guidelines, right? And so even though you may not honor them, it doesn't change what my guidelines are, okay? So if I say, you know, there's someone who is always asking something from me, right? So if I switch roles and I'm always the one giving, and I notice that there's always a particular family member asking something from me and it makes me feel uncomfortable, that is key. You gotta ask yourself, how are you feeling every time someone asks you something repeatedly? And if it's a consistent behavior and make you feel uncomfortable, then you have to say, is this a boundary that is not cool? And if so, then I need to start practicing saying no. No, I love you. No, I can't do this, but I can do this, right? No, I may not be able to give you $20 this week, but I can show you how to manage your finances. No, I can't, you know, pick up them groceries for you this week, but I can X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be a hard no. It can be a no, and I can do this.
So that way it helps both parties, I see. Everyone wins.
Everybody wins. I know that the person may not be happy, right? But it's not about being a people pleaser. It's about respecting your values too.
So our boundaries, and setting our boundaries, just to kind of there's a word I'm looking for.
Remind people.
To recap.
Yeah. There you go.
So we have to be able to respect our own values, be willing to say no, and to communicate what our boundaries are.
Yes, and also be mindful that you got to respect other people's boundaries too.
Oh yeah, other people.
It is about other people, right?
Not just about me.
No, that's about you. That is about you. It's about you and the other person in the relationship, right?
That makes sense. So for the 3 that we spoke about today, do you see yourself in any of them? Have you been the offender? Have you been offended? If you want to discuss, you can comment, you can share. Look, you can, if you don't be passive aggressive. I almost gave a passive aggressive way. Send this video to somebody. No. No, just check in with yourself and see if there's any ways that you can improve for both sides. Because we've all been the person who's taken too much and the person who's given too much. The person who has played a victim role, the person who has been overly guarded from the last video, or the person who just don't want to act right because we want to get what we want to get. So just take stock, reflect, and be well. And how you begin to heal from it is first you have to recognize that that's what's going on. And then you have to be honest. I have found, as far as healing for me in a situation where my spirit and my trust has been broken, that being honest was the hardest part. Whether it was with myself or with other people, that I didn't want to believe